Hello, welcome. All right, and so we're going to look at test two. And thank you for being flexible as I had something to do for another student. She has a special assignment and I had not yet helped her. So I really appreciate, I'm sure she does too, um, you extending this an hour. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share the page with the test. Let's see here, test two. So try to use discretion in how much to openly convey and how much to leave to you. Um, let's see. Let's just start from the beginning. All right, and so the
Mr.
context,
Gal,
yes.
I have to leave about 5:50. My other class starts at 6, if that's
Oh,
okay.
you got it. You got it. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, that's on me. It should have been at 4 today. Um, so at any rate, so the very first one is in the introduction. And you'll find the population boom and dispersion. You'll find political ambiguity regarding our rights as Englishmen. Did someone else say something? Okay, and then uh, you'll find historic events that put stress upon the British Empire. You will not find C, British plans to placate the Native Americans' uh, lands to the colonies. Okay, no, it was just the opposite. They wanted to avoid war with the natives, and so they in the proclamation of 1763 they kept us from intruding upon their lands. um, Interpret the American War for Independence as a fight to maintain political powers that we gained during um, during poor British enforcement. Remember, that's number one on the War for Independence handout. That's Alan Brinkley, the textbook that I would use if I did use a textbook. That's his thesis, and that is known as the salutary neglect thesis, right? That we were neglected, but it had a healthy salutary effect. Bernard Bailyn's court history is number two. Remember, it was all about the Enlightenment, the French Enlightenment and the Scottish Enlightenment, and the Second Great Awakening, and how they had or perhaps the First Great Awakening, how they had an effect upon the colonists in enhancing their sense of entitlement and their aversion to any forms or manifestations of tyranny. So it's kind of the court history that we grew up with, fighting for liberty against tyranny. Right. The Enlightenment's notions of natural rights and the social contract regarding the source of a government's legitimacy and its proper role may have ideologically influenced America's propaganda campaign during the war. Absolutely. All right. And then, yes, the Great Awakening, there was it taught conditional deference. If your leaders were not doing God's will and not doing their job properly, if there was corruption, abuse of power involved, then you had the religious God's approval to rebel against them. So that had a psychological effect as well. The Scottish and English libertarians or Whigs emphasized the need to keep those in power accountable regarding abuse of such power and respect for and constitutional protections of the rights of individual citizens. Absolutely. All right. Number seven, Joseph Ellis's book on Washington is number three on that handout. So remember, he had all those ambitions that he had, that Washington had, that were thwarted in a system of nepotism, of choosing people based upon their connections to the British throne instead of by merit. And he thought that those rules were unfair and foolish. All right. Howard Zinn had the demagogue thesis, right? That the founding fathers were manipulative, upper crust colonists who deflected the wrath of the poor toward a convenient British scapegoat so they could be the top dog standing. So had we used Alan Brinkley's textbook, you would see that it adheres to the salutary neglect thesis, not Howard Zann's demagogue thesis. So that one's not true. Then Articles of Confederation number 10 is number 1 on turning to a republic. And hopefully you remember that as far as like we had a chance at a very decentralized democratic confederacy, and we messed it up. That generation supposedly followed its id too faithfully and created a mess of things. And it led straight into the hands of the conservatives, who could say, "I told you so." We need a more centralized, less democratic government. Pauline Maier is number 2 on that handout. And remember, she doesn't paint a very good picture of the founding fathers, saying that they had to have pressure applied to them to incorporate enlightened components into the Constitution during the ratification or approval process, that they initially didn't put them in there. During and just after the War for Independence, state-level governments established very enlightened and liberal governments, not conservative. The type of government that we devise, that we still have, is a constitutional federal republic, right? Whereby the Constitution, everything and everyone must abide by the Constitution. And the federal part is the states and local governments sharing power with the federal government. And a republic is a mixed government with elements of democracy, elements of aristocracy, and elements of a monarchy. All right. Number 14, we've never been laissez-faire, right? Government let it be, completely free and unfettered economic system. No. As you recall from number 1 on the early Republic handout, the Secretary of Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, got his hands in very intricately involved in our national economy. The Federalist Papers were written by Hamilton and about 4 others. There are about 85, 87 little philosophical writings that try to convince people to accept this new, less democratic, more centralized federal republic that we have. All right. Enlightened components to the Constitution and conservative components to the Constitution. I might leave those 2 up to you. All right. I don't want to do every single one. Governor Morris, John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, and other conservatives. Look at B. You should just know that that's not true. Wanted Americans to be paternalistically ruled by the educated, wealthy, better sort without any limitations, restrictions, elections, or checks and balances to hold them accountable. No, no one was that far to the right. Not them either. So notice they believe that while all American citizens ought to be equally entitled to the same basic rights, protections, and privileges, not all would be equally capable as elected politicians. All right. The Anti-Federalists, they were the ones who were libertarians. They did not oppose libertarianism. They were libertarians. And they were more concerned about tyranny from the few than they were about tyranny from the many. Alexander Hamilton's system, that's number 1 in the early Republic handout. And both number 20 and 21, I might leave to you. They're both right from number 1. All right. Number 22, George Washington, in the popular narrative of his tenure, indulged the conservative stress upon the dignity of his person and position, gave Hamilton a proverbial long leash with his economic system, unilaterally declared neutrality in the Continental Wars of Napoleon, supported and tried to hide Jay's Treaty, claimed executive privilege, and supported a military response to the Whiskey Rebels. That is all true. He did all that to placate the conservatives. And of course, a lot of people believe that he truly deep down was trying to hide it and try to be the impartial father figure that he was, more conservative than liberal. 23, George Washington arguably pacified fears of liberals and relinquishing his sword at the end of the war, to the Continental Congress, in running for office for just 2 terms, in making goodwill tours, in placing some liberals in his cabinet, and in tolerating a hostile press, especially Philip Freneau and his National Gazette that tore into him all the time. That is true as well. All right. Number 24, I'm going to leave that to you. 24 is number 2 in the early Republic handout. Number 24 is number 2 in the early Republic handout. What is his explanation as to why John Adams only served 1 term and lost re-election? All right. 25, found in that same section. The Alien and Sedition Acts were described as constitutionally dubious or doubtful and controversial. Absolutely. Gave to Congress a power over immigrants constitutionally given to the president? No, that was vice versa. Permitted American citizens constitutional freedom to petition to be momentarily expanded? No, but restricted. All right. Hofstadter's thesis is the daddy thesis of Jefferson. Hopefully you recall that. I believe it's number 3 in the early Republic handout. Remember, his mom was an aristocrat, and his mom's parents lorded that over his commoner father. And he didn't have the courage to confront them as a child. But when he grew up, he became passive-aggressively indifferent toward people who put on airs as if they were better than others, and perhaps tried to convince himself and his deceased father that he was not a typical aristocrat, but that he was a lover of the common people, like his dad. 27, which of the following is not included as ironic in Jefferson's purchase of the Louisiana Territory? Nothing in Article 2 states that the chief executive can purchase foreign claimed land. That is true. Jefferson sent multiple expeditions into the far west, some that included evidence of imperialistic ambitions, like Clark and Lewis and Clark expedition. That is true. He established democratic institutions there immediately. No, he did not. You look up number 4 in the early Republic handout, and you'll find that C is the one that doesn't fit. According to the textbook, which we didn't use, President Thomas Jefferson was surprisingly bipartisan in his appointments. He was not. That is false. That's one of the many contradictions of Jefferson. He talked about the free market of ideas and wanting to be surrounded by people from a broad swath of ideologies, but then he surrounded himself with yes men when he became president. President Thomas Jefferson ironically initiated military confrontation with the Basha of Tripoli and even privately endorsed William Eaton's attempted coup there before a congressional declaration of war. That is true. And then also in number 4, with his contradictions, I would ask you to look it up for yourself. Did Jefferson sadly express essentialist racist stereotypes about African Americans, despite his affair with Sally Hemings? And you'll find it in there. Okay. Apparent contradictions between Jefferson's rhetoric and his actions as president have been interpreted by historian Alan Brinkley as a decision of Jefferson's to work pragmatically with forces beyond his control. And that is the thesis of number 4. And I cite Alan Brinkley from it. So yes, that is true. The War of 1812, was it officially declared against the French? That should be a piece of cake. Having done the video assignment. Number 33, during the War of 1812, Canadian civilians and forces enthusiastically embraced the American liberation en masse? No. As you saw in that video, no way. They fought us as foreign invaders. Okay, 34, according to the War of 1812 video, many Ohio Valley Native Americans chose to join the Red Sticks against the United States on account of the white settlers' intrusions and illegitimate American treaties in which some native leaders sold others' lands. That is true. And I'll leave up to you, number 35, according to the War of 1812, video documentary, the fight against the Native Americans in the South was less intense, particularly with the Creek tribe. So that one should be fairly easy. 36, what was not used as evidence against Fogel and Ingerman's thesis? These are the last two on slavery, right? In the early Republic handout. Evidence of slaves' discontent, evidence of slaves' malnourishment, sufficient threat of insurrection to merit the master's efforts to protect themselves. All those you'll find in there. President Adams' endorsement of severe slave codes? No. Remember, with our federal republic, they're entitled to their Fifth Amendment right to their, quote, chattel property within each state. So slave codes are a state matter. They were never endorsed by a single president. What was the instructor's thesis regarding the utility of converting slaves to Christianity? That it was a Vicodin pill used to ease their pain, that it was a stimulant to identify formation, self-esteem, and even rebellion, that it actually empowered some to love their masters, that it led to all the above. And you should know, if you read it, the last section, that it's all the above. I just said there was truth to all of them, all those major interpretations to the slaves' acceptance of Christianity. All right, the framers of the Constitution, they endorsed slavery by way of contract clause, the Fugitive Slave Clause, and by sharing power with the states. That is all true. In his coverage of the War for Independence, Alan Brinkley contends that the revolutionary generation was primarily motivated by enlightened beliefs. No, I already stated that had we used the textbook, it adheres to the salutary neglect thesis, that we were kind of spoiled and we fought to keep a good thing going. And then the end of the video, if you need to, literally just go to the end of the video, because I'd like to ask you to figure out number 40. But thanks to last-minute military victories at the Great Lakes and at New Orleans, the U.S. diplomatically won some land from Great Britain at the peace of the War of 1812. So if you need to remind yourself, go back to the end of the video when they make the treaty, and they state clearly if any land was won. All right, so looking at the test, on my introduction, I say that I gave you 2 chances. So unless I made a mistake, I'm sure you'll have 2 chances at this. So I wish you well. I believe you have, what, about 3 more days till it's due? I think it's the 22nd, the night of the 22nd that it's due. But good luck on it.
Thank you for helping us.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And thank you for, like I said, thank you for acclimating to an hour later at such late notice. All right, you guys, I'm going to see you later. You guys, good luck. Ace this test.
Bye. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I actually had a question.
Yeah.
Really quick. Will you be posting this just to make sure, like, for certain of the certain questions?
Sure.
How you were
Yeah,
doing it?
especially the textbook ones, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd be happy to.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.